20 years of this album. We got a show coming up, right, for it?
Yeah, we're doing a show at the Pyramid Scheme in August. I think it's August 16th.
Okay.
I think. And we're gonna play the record in full for the first time ever.
Nice.
There's there's stuff on there that we've never played before.
Okay.
And I think we're gonna try to play a new song as well.
Cool.
And maybe a couple other ones.
Nice.
So tickets are selling for that. They are available. If people want to come, I think they should, because it's going to be really cool.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Metal Maniacs Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Ingersoll, and I'm here with a Sultan of Swing,
your boy Modd. What's
up,
good,
buddy?
Jay? Classic rock reference.
Another classic rock reference. So today we have TJ Miller from the band Glassfield and Still Remains.
What's up?
What's up, buddy? Thanks for coming out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I know we got to talk to you a little bit at the Heart on Your Sleeve Fest, and I know we talked about, was like, hey, man, it'd be cool to really have you on the show, so I appreciate you coming through.
Yeah, man, anytime.
And it seems like we got quite a bit to talk about right now, man. Glassfield's got a practically new album came out, right?
Yeah.
And then Still Remains is kind of popping off, right? Doing some shit. So I'm very curious about a lot of that, just because there was a lot of gaps in the Still Remains catalog.
Yeah.
And you were also in From the Raven.
Yeah, like that never got. We didn't even write more than a couple songs.
Okay,
honestly,
cool.
But,
I was just reading some stuff about.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah,
and then Divided by Friday, is that true too?
No, I've never heard of that.
Okay, cool. So that was just
lies.
Just some internet shit. Then that's cool. I couldn't
problem.
find anything anyway about it, so it was. I don't know. Sometimes you'll get in a little band and it might be 2 songs and people know about it and that's it. But why don't you just take me a little bit on your journey, if you don't mind, man? Just get me up to the point where you really just started getting. Let's just go from because it was 2002, 2003, where Still Remains was kind of the thing. But why don't you just take me on your personal journey? How, we're an extreme metal show or a metal show, so just tell me how you your journey got into metal and metalcore stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just preface the whole conversation and for your listeners and everything by saying that, yes, I sing for this metal band, but I would not consider myself to be a metalhead.
Okay. Fair.
So, there's a lot of metal that I love.
Sure. Right.
Just overall with any genre, I'm just picky as fuck. So, I could say I'm a music lover. There's definitely a lot of metal I like, but I wouldn't. You could ask me what Obituary's favorite or first record was, and I'm like, I don't fucking know.
Right.
no idea.
Fair.
You know what I mean?
That's cool, man.
No
That's
clue.
perfectly fine.
I got into music at a really young age. I was probably 2 or 3 walking around with a pair of drumsticks. My mom was watching MTV and partying a whole bunch when I was a little guy. Some of my first records, it's funny that you mentioned the Sultan of Swing, because I remember Dire Straits as such a little kid when they came out with I Want My MTV.
Huge.
That music video, when that started airing on MTV, it was the first weird cartoon virtual reality music video, and I remember seeing that as a little kid, and it was just it's probably the first music video I have any sort of remembrance of, in my life. So going from that to I lived with my mom. My parents got divorced when I was really little. I lived with my mom in Tampa until I was about 9. And that whole thing was, AC/DC and Poison and Guns N' Roses, Bryan Adams, Summer of '69, just any cool, just rock that was on the radio. Got into a little rap when I was a kid, MC Hammer.
We just talked about that.
Vanilla Ice.
Vanilla Ice,
I had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle soundtrack on cassette tape.
Did you have the pants too? The baggy pants?
I had a couple of Hammer pants. Yeah, they were makeshift sweatpants. They were probably the Target brand or some shit,
me too, bro. Me too. That's funny.
The knockoff Airwalks.
Sweet.
But when I moved up to Grand Rapids when I was about 9.5, I was born here.
Okay.
But then, my mom married a guy in the military, so we were down in Florida on base. and then they got divorced, so come back up to Michigan. And when I got back up here, I got custody with my dad, and they were a really conservative, like strict Christian kind of family, and so like
time to rebel.
Well, a little bit. Like I was never a real bad kid or like a rebellious kid to some degree, but like he was very controlling over what I would listen to. So like I'd my mom, when I would see her, because she was like an addict and whatever, I didn't get to see her all that much. She'd give me like a Nirvana disc or like a Metallica or Megadeth disc or whatever to bring home and listen to. But then, my dad would just get a stick up his ass every once in a while and like just comb through my room like I was some sort of rebellious kid, which I wasn't. And he'd sit me down at the kitchen table and we'd just comb through the lyric books in these fucking albums and like, this is sacrilegious. Like, are you like, like this is, you can't let this get into your head and blah, blah, blah. And we're not going to let you listen to this. And it was just like, it was a lot.
Damn.
I feel like I had some similar experiences because my dad was a corrections officer. He also served in the military. So if he heard a band name he didn't like, he'd call it out, and we didn't necessarily go through the lyrics, but there was some of that. And I'm like, look, man, I just listen to the music. I don't even care what they're singing about. It's like, so I feel you.
Before we jump back in, I just want to say I do remember the only tape I ever really got in trouble with was the Anthrax Attack of the Killer Bees because of the song on there. Starting up a posse. Yeah, because
Smokes.
Do you know what that song is?
No, I don't know.
So it's like this weird song on that, and it's like Anthrax, they're singing, "You fucking whore, that's all you are, you fucking whore." And my dad heard that, and they weren't having that. And I was about the same age, and like that was the only time I ever got like policed for lyrics. But that was intense because I was like 9 or 10 or something.
Yeah,
and it was
the whole premise of that song is to use every word that you're not supposed to use in a song, and it's basically like almost like a country jingle song.
Yeah,
it's almost terrible.
It's like the Pussifer song. What was that song that he did? Like, oh God, Maynard did that fucking song on that record. I can't remember what it was.
Definitely sounds like something Maynard would do.
You fuck the judge, I fuck the judge. Yeah. You remember that song? Like, I don't know if you ever heard that, but it's hilarious.
I'm not actually too familiar with Pussifer, to be honest.
The one band of his that I don't listen to, really, I don't know much about it at all.
Country, what is it? My country boner, it won't go down. Like it's like this like spoof of a country song. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. But yeah, sorry, interrupt.
No, you're good. You're good.
Your dad was kind of policing your stuff.
Yeah, my dad would police my stuff. I was limited to what I could listen to. So I wanted to play instruments from an early age. I wanted to play drums. I wanted to play guitar. I wanted to be in the school band, but come 7th grade, my parents, I don't know if they just didn't want, me playing around the house because of the, just be loud and inconvenient, or if it was a money thing. So instead of putting me in band, I got into choir. Okay. And, because I was limited on what I could jam, I was walking around the neighborhood with my Walkman on, and I was listening to Thriller.
Okay.
And I was listening to Elvis Presley, and I was listening to things that like my grandparents liked. But I really attribute some of that stuff into how I think about music, and those were really important records and songs and everything. So it's almost kind of like a blessing in disguise. Your parents don't let you listen to like punk and metal and hardcore and whatever that you're kind of gravitating towards, but then it's almost like bummer. Well, I'm gonna listen to like Elvis or I'm gonna listen to Michael Jackson, but then you think about it and you're like, this is actually good shit, and it's creating some really good like music, like fundamental ideas of songwriting and melody and things like that. So because I couldn't really focus on music, I was into sports. Michael Jordan was my hero of heroes. Like he was the first like idol I ever had, and I never played on like the school basketball team. I played intramural. And I did that from 7th through 9th grade until I hurt my back a little bit at one point, and then my mom basically told my dad and my stepmom to get fucked, and she was like, I'm giving him this acoustic guitar that I have from some ex-boyfriend or whatever. So like my mom gave me this acoustic guitar, and I was just playing it constantly. My grandpa had a guitar at his house, and I was over there every weekend, every other weekend, and it was probably this like 1950s Martin guitar with the like the wood was crackling, and it had these cool inlays, and it was just covered in dust. it was probably tuned in C standard because like if you tried to tune it up to E standard, the strings would the neck would curve or the strings would bust. The strings have probably been on there for decades.
Yeah.
But it's how I learn, and it was just cool memories thinking about that stuff. So like I really wanted to play guitar, and I was getting pretty good after a couple of years. My grandma bought me a Strat that came with a little amp. And, I was starting to just get tabs. It was like the 90s, dial-up internet. It would take 2 hours to load a fucking like tab on a website. Yep. And I would do it. I would sit there and wait for my Nirvana tab, and I would print it out, and I would just,
and it's wrong.
Figure it out. It's wrong. But the cool stuff about that is that you start like recognizing that it's wrong, and then you kind of just rely on your ear, and you're like, that's kind of how you learn to play by ear.
Sure.
A little bit.
Like that's not the right note.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's a good starting point though for not having anything. Better than if you're just going to pick up and try to learn it by ear, because that's daunting when you first start. Like,
and you don't really know chord shapes or anything.
You don't know why. The third fret marker sounds different than the seventh, so you're just going to hit all the notes to find one. At least you got that little bit of tab to kind of get you in the
and then
right
when
direction.
your ear settles on the one, you're like, okay, this is it right here. Yeah. So there was a lot of that, and I think by the time I was like 16, I was getting pretty good at guitar. I was trying to there was a band that I liked that was around, and they got rid of their guitar player, and I was talking about joining them, and they were like, yeah, you're going to be in. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, we're just going to stay a 3-piece. We're not going to have, a second guitar player. I was super bummed. And it was like right around that time where I started hanging out with these kids at school, these guys at school. I was more of like I was really into like 90s grunge. I was really into like Soundgarden and Nirvana and the Pumpkins, you know what I mean? Like I was into, Pearl Jam was one of my favorite bands.
That's why you and Ross get along so well, huh?
Yeah.
I know he's a big Billy Corgan fan.
Ross is great. Yeah, we started working out together every once in a while and stuff.
He's awesome, dude.
He's a cool dude.
We love Ross.
But, so I was kind of a loner at the same time, kind of trying to find my way. I had, I had been through so many schools, moving a lot and whatever. And one day I was sitting at the lunch table by myself, and this group of guys came up to me, and they were all like, they had like bleached hair and like studded belts and ripped jeans, and they were more into like the punk, hardcore metal stuff. And they were like, hey, you should come sit with us. I was like, okay. Like kind of nervous, like I don't know who these fucking guys are.
You're about to get bullied.
Yeah, like, but I did, and they ended up being the like nicest fucking guys in school.
Sweet.
They went to church, and they like started inviting me to their like youth group that they would go to and stuff like that. And
they're recruiting you.
Yeah. But they got me into like a lot of the like early like harder bands that I got into, like that were on like Tooth and Nail and Solid State. Like I got into like Zao and Living Sacrifice. But then
like that early kind of metalcore.
Yeah, the early metalcore stuff. And I had never heard it before. I wasn't really in it in the 90s at all. Like I had never heard Hatebreed or what they were doing. You know what I mean? I had never heard, really like screaming vocals until like and one of the guys actually was into some more secular stuff, so he like showed me like the first Limp Bizkit record, and like he kind of plugged me into the Deftones and things like that. So it was like early Blindside, Deftones, like when I heard Zao, that's when I was like, I need to do that, and I kind of forgot about guitar. Like like this guy's voice, he sounds inhuman. Like it scares me. Like it makes me feel uncomfortable and weird, and like I'd never heard anything like that before. And I was just like, I need to figure out how I can do this.
Nice. Hell yeah.
So
that's badass.
I want to impact people the way that guy makes me feel when I hear it.
Right.
So then it kind of just went from there, and then we started starting bands, and I was early on playing guitar and singing, and then it kind of just slowly got to the point where like I kind of fizzled out of guitar and was really just focusing on becoming a singer. For metal bands and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. Now, do you still play guitar now? Do you mess with it at all?
Yeah. Not like a ton. I do have another band besides Still Remains and Glassfield, and it doesn't do much. It's called Dead Me.
Okay.
And I do all the guitar stuff in that for the most part. The way it kind of started was me just writing songs at home And then I got plugged into Matt with Matt Marquez. Do you know him?
Yeah, he's actually the guy I was just telling Nick.
You guys should interview him.
Yeah, I got him slated for the show. Yeah? I'm just trying to lock down a date because he says Norma Jean might be in the studio, so he's kind of playing it by ear. But yeah, I'm trying to get him on. But
it's funny you bring him up though.
Yeah, we just talked about him like literally before you walked in the door. I was like, I'm trying to get Matt on the show, and he was actually on Ross's show too.
Oh, was he?
Because he was doing some mixing for Ross.
That's right. Yeah, that's great. Well, Matt's a great dude, and we connected after he moved up here, and I just got in the studio with him. So he's, he does all the drums with my Dead Me stuff.
Okay.
I'm kind of trying to and we haven't recorded anything for like the last couple years, but like I'm trying to kind of find other people to collab with, just because he's so busy with Norma Jean. You know what I mean?
Right.
But no offense to him whatsoever. He's been nothing but helpful and a great friend too. But yeah, so it's kind of like more, it's almost like, I don't know, 9 Inch Nails, Alice in Chains mixed with like some screaming.
Okay. All right.
I don't know. You might like it or you might not.
Well, I mean,
sounds like I might love it.
I was going to say, you just said 3 things I like. So, I mean, if that's the equation.
And you're in it. I like you so far.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, man.
It's all adding up,
you guys
brother.
are pretty tight, too. Yeah, man. Yeah.
It's all adding up.
What are you guys doing after this?
Yeah, right. Michigan's Adventure.
Yeah, here we go. I get my suit. Yeah. I know I'm not drinking that shit.
I could drink this shit all day.
The fucking
this
Spice
is really good.
Well,
this
you're going to
really
be leaving the Metal Maniacs with a souvenir today, my brother.
20-cent deposit.
Thank you guys so much.
So, all right, then you started getting in the band. So, was Still Remains like the main band that kind of came out of everything of you just trial and error? Is that
eventually? Yeah.
Okay.
So my first band was called Forced Under. And it was me and my buddy Jason Dykehouse. He was one of those guys from the lunch table.
Okay, cool. Yes.
And then after doing that, Forced Under for a little while, that broke up, and then Jason and I hooked up with our friends Jordan Whalen and Zach Roth, and we started this band Shades of Amber. And that kind of did its thing for a year and a half, and we were just young kids, and I think Jordan and I kind of wanted to like take it a bit more seriously than we were. And so Shades of Amber ended up kind of disbanding. Jason and Zach went on to do Joust, which was more of kind of like a nerd rock band, more along the lines of like Weezer or Nada Surf. And they had, Zach transferred from drums to keyboards, and he was playing keyboards. And then Jordan and I started Still Remains. And then it just kind of slowly became what it is.
Okay.
Over a while.
So my buddy Luke Fortin, we bring his name up on the show all the time because he's been so influential with all the music that we shared.
Another paycheck for Luke.
Yeah, another paycheck for Luke. But my first introduction to Still Remains, he gave me the EP. And it was back
Born to Die.
Yeah, so it was back in the day when you could burn everything.
Yeah.
So remember when you would burn a disc, but you would try to use all 80 minutes?
Yeah.
Right? Because you wanted to use that whole disc because you're burning the disc. You don't want to burn just an EP on a disc.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So me and my buddy Rollin, I had forgot that I burned the Still Remains EP at the end of this Into Eternity CD. Me and my buddy Rollin both take a 1/4 ounce of mushrooms. We split it. So like an eighth each, and we are just tripping hard. And we're listening to
tends to happen on those things.
So we're listening to the Into Eternity, and we're just vibing. And then the Still Remains comes on. I'm like, this doesn't sound like that last. Like
this is different.
It's a different band, yeah.
But then we listened to it, and obviously it was fucking fantastic because I was tripping on shrooms. But I forgot that I put it on the end of that CD, and I just thought it was kind of a funny story. Because
that's cool.
I was just like, man, this is fucking awesome, dude. I fucking love this. I mean, it does help that you're, everything's great. Like if you're in a great mindset on shrooms for the most part, but
it could go bad quick.
Oh yeah,
it could have been.
That's it's all
been like this is awful.
Yeah,
at least it wasn't that.
No, but it was just kind of funny because he ended up somehow, how back in the day he just burned everything. But what was on the end of that, I was like, man, this is fucking sweet. So then I just started digging into you guys a little bit more. And then I was like, oh, they're from Grand Rapids. That's crazy. I didn't know all that. So, but so then tell me a little bit about that. Just coming into like the EP the first thing you guys did, and then like how you kind of transitioned into basically it was like Road Runner, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, before that EP, we had another EP that we kind of did ourselves, and we would just burn them. Like we never had it pressed, or we didn't have any like label, any like money or anything. And I feel like that was probably the first time I was actually in like I guess you could consider it a studio. You know what I mean? Like recording and like just weird being in there for the first time, hearing yourself clearly in some headphones and like hearing it played back, and you're just like, holy shit, like it. I'm so self-conscious, especially at that point in my life.
Oh, yeah. Right.
You know, oh man, it was just so weird. But I think, you know, over the course of a couple of years, just hearing it enough and playing all the shows that we played, you just slowly build some confidence. And by the time we did the If Love Was Born to Die, we were tight. You know, we went into that studio. We recorded that EP on tape, and it was all live except for the vocals. You know, we did the vocals afterwards, but instruments, the dudes were tight.
Yeah.
You know, we went in there and we all jammed it out.
A lot of woodshed.
And I mean, and that's still kind of on the time that we're doing that too. Not everything's just I can do part by part, grid by grid.
Right.
We're not living in that world quite yet.
Not quite yet. No. But it was super great. It was a really, really fun experience. I think records should still be recorded that way.
Yeah.
There's just something about
I
it.
think musicians should still approach recording that way, where you do a lot of woodshed, a lot of practicing at home, where you're not fucking up and wasting people's time in the studio.
It forces you to become good.
Yeah.
It also enhances the songwriting, I think, because you spend so much time playing a riff that you finally say, this could be better.
Yeah.
Why don't we look at changing this a little bit? Jay does that a lot. You know, you sit there and you write a song and you got it the way you want it one week. But then you go home after listening to the recording or practicing it so many times, and then you say, I want to change that fill. I think we could do a little bit more with that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just like, oh, I wrote a song, and then you're in the studio the next day because everything's so easy to record now.
I know.
I don't think you're getting quite the quality that you could if you spent more time playing it.
I
It's
agree.
quality control. Yeah. You're not.
You got to kind of time gate yourself, I think, in the songwriting process to where you're not just like crapping out songs every other week, you know, because you think you can, or I wrote a song and it's done. You know, you kind of want to like let it marinate. You know what I mean? Like set it down, maybe write a different song and come back.
Yep. No, you know, that's one of the good things about being young and writing songs too, is because you're at the point probably where you're still living with your parents and you don't have like a fucking career.
Right.
And you can get together with the dudes a lot and hammer it out, you know, with all your tools. Now it's like I'm 42 years old and I don't have time to do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's like you say, you know, you kind of get in the studio, you're kind of farting out a song, and then you're kind of just trying to refine it real quick and make it good.
Yeah.
You know, it really pays off that time when you get to just kind of that FaceTime.
Yeah.
Face to face. You're in a room for hours.
Real-time feedback.
Oh yeah.
And at the end of the day, you're still jamming, right? So like the jamming is where the magic happens. So we're playing this song through. Well, now let's go back to that because that part didn't feel right. So now we can kind of, you know, that's where I feel the magic happens when we're all in the room and we're all like making a decision on
fleshing it out.
What would sound better.
Yeah.
Oh, we played this song the same the last 3 months, but now they're just like, I'm starting to do this little thing at the end now that's a little different.
I think that needs to sit in there, you know, it's kind of, you got to work that in there somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's just like that vibe and that feel. Sometimes you need to play that song 30, 40 times before them little things start to show themselves that appropriately fit in the content.
I couldn't agree more.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So,
you
know, that's big. But so we did the EP. We did call that EP, I guess. Demo,
If Love Was Born to Die. Yep.
So,
and we almost used it as a demo. I mean, like we toured on it. We probably sold 10,000 copies of it. Like while we were touring, which was amazing.
The first or the second EP?
Just the second
If
one.
Love Was Born
That's
to Die.
like the
real EP.
It's the real EP.
Yeah.
And that one, I'm looking
the
at
other
the
thing
wiki
was
here.
more of a demo kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
It's almost, just like, hey, check out my band, check out my band.
Yep.
So that the first one, the Dying with a Smile, no record label whatsoever.
No.
Just DIY.
DIY.
And then the second one, I'm looking at Benchmark Records. Does that sound? Or
Benchmark was a company in Indianapolis that like our management had a contact with, and he worked with them, and I think that they kind of financed. It was only, you know, we spent a couple grand on that EP.
Sure.
and I think that they financed it, so they put their name on it. We weren't signed or anything like that, but we did use that EP because we toured on it hard, actually. Like we got on a couple tours with Haste the Day where we were going all over the country, and they had a draw, and we were capitalizing on that quite a bit, to where we were selling the living shit out of this EP while we were on the road. And our live show at that point was nuts. We were just crazy. And eventually it gained some traction. We got management, and management was using that to like label shop, throwing, hey, you guys need to check this out. And so we got in like a pretty big like battle of the labels, each one trying to outdo each other to, present the best deal. It was pretty sweet.
Do you think that was because of the because you guys were right on the floor of this metalcore shit, bro? Like really, if you think about it, like the popularity of it, because you got the Of Love and Lunacy, that's like 2005, right? Same year, some other albums that came out: Avenged Sevenfold, City of Evil, Black Dahlia Murder, Miasma, Kill Switch, Engaged, End of Heartache. That was 2004. So you guys were really on the cutting floor of this metalcore like uprise. Like you kind of caught this wave. It was like perfect timing, perfect storm.
Especially if you walk it back to before Of Love and Lunacy came out, with all the work that you guys put into Of Love and Lunacy. You just showed up in 2005. Yeah, you're already grinding for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, you're on tours. You're doing that whole thing.
When Kill Switch has their first album out, and this metalcore thing is just launching, like Shadows Fall is just coming out. So you guys were right there within it.
But to say, what do you think the reason was that you had a lot of labels after you?
I think that a lot of labels, probably. I think some of the appeal was that we were really heavily influenced by non-American bands at that point. Like we had really kind of like divulged into like In Flames, and Soilwork, Children of Bodom,
that makes sense.
With
the keyboards, the Children of Bodom.
But it was almost like we still incorporated like breakdowns into it because we were hardcore, and we didn't realize really what we were doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? We were just kind of like, well, we like metal, so we're going to play metal. Oh, well, we like breakdowns. Oh, but those keyboards sound cool, so we're going to try to incorporate that. You know what I mean? And then it was kind of this perfect storm where the labels were like, fuck, this is like, they're like an American version of In Flames or something like that.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I hear, especially on the early stuff, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, they're still a massive influence to us as well.
I picked up that influence from even the 2013, and I went all the way back to Of Love and Lunacy, and I was like, man, these guys have heard of In Flames.
It's Jordan's favorite band. He's our primary songwriter.
There's nothing wrong with it either. I'll tell you that right now, buddy.
It's a band name that's come up many times on the podcast. We just got done talking about them in the shoot earlier this afternoon, where I said In Flames is a great gateway band. Yeah. So I think that you can present In Flames to most people depending on what they like. And you can say, well, listen to this beautiful acoustic guitar arrangement, or listen to these awesome melodies and the song structures there. You got the melodies and the choruses. So I was picking up on that, and like, these guys definitely know In Flames. And I loved, like that resonated with me. I was smiling. I was like, man, take me back. Can we have more bands like this, please? And I'm wishing you guys all the success on the comeback, because I'm like, we could use a band like Still Remains like out there. Like, I'd love to see you guys get bigger than you ever have been, on your return here, because
it'd be cool, I love it. But like, I don't know if it's realistic. I mean, we've been back together like legitimately since 2011. We just don't do anything.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like we did a record in 2013.
Yeah, great record.
Thank you.
We'll definitely dive into that.
Fucking love it. We'll come back to it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for the lack of output? Is it just family lives and work, or basically that? I mean,
we all have like young children and careers and like no time.
It's not like you're 21, you can drop everything and hit the road, right?
Yeah. No, we can't at all. We can't hit the road. I mean, we're doing a tour coming up.
Europe, right?
We're doing UK because it's like a week and a half, and that's it. And we can all afford the PTO. We can't do it. We can't do that with like the US.
I follow you guys on the socials, and I saw somebody asking about a US tour.
Like, I wish we could, but like it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
like, and I hate to be that way.
The comment from the band page was like, we'd love to, but it just costs so much money to do that. And when you're trying to pay your bills, you can't be out there for 3-4 weeks on a road, and where it's like, I don't know if I can keep my house and tour with this band, And
Yeah.
Like, I was like, well, you guys are doing Europe. Isn't that expensive to fly over there and do several shows in the UK?
Well, yeah, it is. But then over there too, like we had such more of a following to where like some of these shows are like selling out.
Yes.
And, like as far as it's not as much of like a time killer and a account killer, like a money killer. You know?
The way I understand touring the UK or Europe, that part of Europe, is everything's pretty close together.
Yeah.
Right.
Where it's not like you're driving from New York to California and you're spending days, like doing this big old tour. Like this is the way I understand it. I've never toured, so I don't know. But just hearing like on Hard Lore and a lot of these different people talk about the UK tours, it's like you drive somewhere and you're kind of there in a couple hours, and you can drive somewhere and you're there in a couple hours. Whereas, even if you're going halfway across the country, it fucking might take 3 days to get there, So
you could play Grand Rapids one night and then play Indianapolis the next day. And it's like a 4.5 hour drive.
Right.
If you're in a van and trailer, it could be 5 to 6, depending on your stops and whatever.
Traffic.
And over there, it's like 2 to 3 hours is a drive for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's
Right.
like a 10-hour drive for them.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Are you serious? Like 2-3 hours ain't nothing
Right.
for us. So you got like major cities not far from each other. I mean, there's times where a drive will be 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like a
Right.
totally different crowd.
Yeah,
You know
nice.
what I mean? Like it's crazy.
Yeah. I heard that's one of the benefits of touring over there, that you can
Massive.
hit some good spots and it's not like it takes up so much of your time.
Yeah.
So if you go over there for a week and a half, it's going to be worth your time, right?
It'll be
Like,
totally worth the time. We probably won't lose our asses.
Right,
You know what I
right,
mean?
yeah.
Not that that's the focus. I mean,
Right.
we don't do it.
Yeah, but
for
you don't want
money.
to lose your ass on it.
No, we don't want to lose
Yeah,
our
yeah,
ass
yeah,
because that makes it hard to do anything like in the future, like record or anything.
And your motivation goes down too, because you're like, oh, we fucking that one.
I mean, like breaking even's one thing. Like, hey, my hobby pays for itself. If we're calling it a hobby, I don't like to call it a hobby at your level. It's like you. Look, man,
it is though. We just got lucky.
Sure.
We got lucky in our previous life, but right now we treat it as a hobby, but it's a true band.
But I love that you guys are still doing it. Like at our age, I got a kid at home. You got a kid. It's like you could just set it down and say, "Hey, I already did that. I was in my 20s. I toured. Like I don't need this in my life anymore." But it just goes to show how much you care about it. To where you're like, "Look, I can still juggle this. I can make this work because I want to, and I love it that much."
We try, man. A lot of times it's really hard.
I believe, man, we talk about it all the time. Getting 4, 5 guys, 6 total guys in the room one day a week is like pulling teeth. It's like, pick a day, and thankfully we live in the era where we can file share and do all these things now with technology. Like, hey, did you listen to this? And did you have time to practice it? When's a good day to get together? But there's nothing that beats getting in the room for half a day with your mates and really wood shedding and grinding out the material.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's always a good time.
I love that you guys decided to come back and do this because you guys are great musicians, man. Honest to God. Like,
Thank you.
I was blown away. I'm listening to stuff with intent last night. I'm like, fuck, these guys are so good. Like,
I got to show you a couple of new tracks. Not on the air.
No,
but
understood. I
maybe
mean,
afterwards I can show you.
Yeah, that'd be dope.
So going back though here, of Love and Lunacy. So you were kind of shopping the demo around.
Yep.
I'm assuming you guys landed with Roadrunner Records. You decided to sign with Roadrunner, correct?
Yep.
What made that decision? What made Roadrunner the place that you wanted to go to?
I think we felt like, career-wise, that Roadrunner could really potentially push us and I don't know. It's like, especially like overseas, Roadrunner is like a household name.
Mm-hmm.
Massive in the UK and Europe. And we just felt like we could probably get on bigger tours and just really make more of a name for ourselves as a Roadrunner band. I think that, if we were really, really focused on just, primarily, like we could have really made the US like our home, you know what I mean? As far as like a band goes, but then we would have had to kind of count out the rest of the world. I would have signed to like Solid State in the States because they were kind of doing everything with their bands that I think we really wanted in the US, but they didn't really have the vehicle to get bands like on good tours like overseas. And we almost saw Roadrunner as like the whole package. And while, and we did get on some all right tours here, but it was really overseas that Roadrunner helped us shine.
So. Did the Roadrunner roster come into factor? Like, were you looking at the other bands on the label, or was
definitely? I mean, we saw that, and we were just,
because there was a heyday there.
Oh yeah, I mean, you got Slipknot,
you
got freaking Megadeth, and now Gojira, and you've got
at that
Kill
time,
Switch.
and at that time, Kill Switch was on there.
Glassjaw at one point was on Roadrunner the Misfits. It was just.
What about Nickelback?
Hey, bro, the one thing that you have to take into perspective about them, as much as like I hate Nickelback personally, like a lot of people love Nickelback still, but like Nickelback was really that thing for Roadrunner that, Roadrunner, I feel like, made so much money off Nickelback that it enabled them to be able to focus on smaller bands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like if they wouldn't have had Nickelback, I feel like they wouldn't have been able to sign bands like us.
Yeah, it raises a point that we just made a little bit ago, is that sometimes you need a band that is so big that it's good for metal.
Yeah.
Right? So Nickelback, we don't call them a metal band. Nobody's sitting here saying they're a metal band, but were they good for metal? Well, hey, they were signed to Roadrunner, and they were just slinging CDs everywhere, all over the world.
Yeah.
And like you said, that helps the label. Well, that helps every band on the label.
It does.
So it's good for metal.
Yep.
And they're an organic rock band. So I think they're overly hated. I'm not a fan either. In fact, I barely like any Nickelback songs along the way. A couple here and there, I'm just like, I'll take it on a song-by-song basis.
Yeah.
So it's fine, it's whatever, but I don't own any Nickelback. Yeah. I don't really care for them that much, but it's hard to throw shade at them now in hindsight if we're trying to be objective about it, because, hey, look, somebody might be a Nickelback fan and go for some of those faster, harder rock songs, and then like, hey, I want and I need more. And that they're a rock band, but they could be somebody's gateway band to something harder and heavier, depending on where they're at in their journey.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the music is pretty heavy. At times. With
Animal, like I think that's one of them.
Yeah.
And just any band to be able to do what they've done and make the amount of money they've done and make a life out of it. Like, say what you will about them, whether you like their music or don't like their music, you got to respect the journey that they've taken. And
it's like they're doing it, we're not.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I don't ever want to shit on anybody. Hey, they're not my favorite band. I don't dislike them, and I don't just automatically turn it off. And actually, the documentary was actually pretty good too, like about them or whatever. The one on Netflix. I don't know if you guys seen it or not, but it's like it's the whole thing is about, like, why does everybody hate Nickelback?
Right. Yeah. And it's all Chad Kroeger.
They're like, I don't know why everybody hates us. But
I want to turn it back to TJ. I wanted you to have your final word on the Nickelback thing, but it just takes a kid listening to it to flip it over and see that Roadrunner record label, right? Yeah. And then the next thing you know, they see that and they're like, oh, well, I want more like that. So when you have the roster that Roadrunner had and a Nickelback, hey man, like, all it takes is for one kid to go from Nickelback to Still Remains, just like that.
Yeah, you never know.
So the Nickelback effect is real.
So when you guys signed, what was that vibe like? Like, how did you feel once you signed? Was you like, oh, this is it. This is what we worked for. This was this is what we wanted. Or was there ever a moment like that where you're like, oh man, we did the thing,
Yeah, there was a lot of that.
Yeah.
There was a lot of excitement, but I think that we were all grounded enough to know that, like, this is going to be hard work.
Okay.
Good. We knew that we had a lot of music to write in the future. We knew that we were going to tour hard and that we weren't going to be around much. And it was just like our lives were going to change.
Okay.
We knew that. And it's at that age, I mean, we were in our young 20s. Or, Jordan was probably still like 18, 19. And when it kind of sets in, it's like, holy shit. You just can't even imagine what's coming. I couldn't imagine what's coming.
Yeah.
So
you got signed. Now, what was that whole deal? Like, so you got signed and you're like, okay, now we owe you a record. Was that the thing? We get the record out, and then we talk tours. Is this?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. So we signed a multi-album deal.
Okay.
And then we're already working on new music, and our goal was just to finish up our first record, and they had a date that they wanted us to go in the studio. Like we picked the producer that we wanted to use.
Garth.
Yep, Garth Richardson.
Yep. Canadian, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. He's massive. I mean, he's done like Rage Against the Machine. He's done the Chili Peppers. there was guitar tone on a record that we had done. It was like the Project 86 Drawing Black Lines album. We liked the guitar tone on that record a lot, so we decided to go with him. And it was kind of like, it was like time crunch because we didn't have a lot of options of guys that weren't already booked. You know what I mean? There were a bunch of producers that we were talking about, and it was like, well, Garth, we could get in with Garth. We know that. And that we were lucky to be able to get in with him because he's just got a massive name for himself.
Right.
And he did a great job.
Yeah.
And it was, the rest is history, I guess. But it was a whole just other process that just the whole thing was crazy.
So when you recorded with him, did you still do the live thing that you did for the EP where everybody jammed it, or is this where you're going with individual click track stuff and
individual tracks? I mean,
so that was new for you guys then? Yeah,
it was new. But I think we anticipated it because we kind of knew that that's how they do it,
The real shit. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what we did is, we were in the Warehouse Studios in Vancouver, Canada, and that's a massive studio. It's owned by Brian Adams, which I think is fucking awesome. Because I loved him as a kid.
I was gonna say you even mentioned his name earlier.
So Far So Good is still a killer record. I don't give a shit what you think. So we were in this really, really professional studio, and we did drums there, and they were literally probably 100 mics on AJ's kit. Like we've got pictures of it somewhere. It's fucking bonkers. And so he's, tracking the drums, but we're all in our own little booths, like kind of around him, and we can hear everything going on. It's almost like we're a scratch track for him.
Okay.
But
gotcha.
But I believe I think there was a click as well. Okay. So he was playing to the click and whatever. And so he tracked all the drums like that. And then it was, we moved from this massive studio over to an island off the coast of Vancouver. It's called Gibson Island, and that's where Garth had his home studio.
Okay.
So he wanted to do drums in this big room, and it was one of the 4 Neve boards, those massive Neve boards. You see it on like Sound City. You know? Grohl's got one of them now in his fucking garage.
It's all about the preamps and those, and
yeah. So we did the drums for that record with one of those like super famous Neve boards. It was just so fucking cool. The thing was like a mile long, and it was just nuts. But then we did everything else back at Garth's house, and it was so tedious. And then like the guitar work was so tedious. You track everything, then you'd go back through and you'd just like record everything almost note by note.
Really?
And you would tune up note by note, and it was so fucking tedious.
So you're just hanging out watching it all? Like is everybody just in the lab
watching
it happen?
Yeah.
You're not up, but you just got to watch Jordan play guitar
licks
for hours.
Well, if I'm not, if I'm not doing that, I'm in our, he's got like a little, like a little house that we would live in with bunks and tons of DVDs, and I think there were some video games, but then all around, like, you only get like 4 hours of sunlight a day, because it's so far north. But then, like, he's got this, it's beautiful outside. It's on the ocean pretty much, and we could play frisbee golf. There's this nuts frisbee golf course just all through the woods and these hills, and we did a lot of frisbee golf. I mean, we weren't really into frisbee golf, but it was what we had to do, and we had a blast.
Even at that time, it wasn't even as popular as it is now. Like, that was kind of early days for frisbee golf, too. You didn't start really hearing about that for the last 10 years about. And now everybody's fucking got a backpack of them fucking discs carrying around everywhere.
But, it was like, it was what we had to do, but it was also taking in the environment and this place that we had never been. It was just so beautiful, like the scenery and everything. So it was a cool, cool memories of recording that record. But then as a vocalist at the time, I lost it. Like I lost what I do. So, I was recording in this booth upstairs in this little, kind of room that he built. It's kind of like my zone, and I was, you spend time, like, I didn't have all the songs fully written. I think there were 2 songs I was still kind of like finishing writing by the time we got into the studio, so trying to finish that. But then anytime I would track, he was just like, what's going to be the most comfortable for you? And I'm like, fuck, I don't know. Like this is so new to me. I did the EP one way and this was completely different. And so I was just like, just give me a 58. So I was just up there with a 58, just really kind of just rocking out in a room by myself with my headphones and just really trying to get into it. But I couldn't find my sweet spot. I was not in my comfort zone. And so, I mean, you guys might not be able to tell, but like anytime I listen to this record, all I hear is my voice is gone. Oh. My scream is fucked. That whole record, it's just blown out, completely blown out. My voice was destroyed. I could record for 5 to 10 minutes at a time, and then I was done for the day. You know what I mean?
Were there any specific reasons that it happened like that? Were you out of practice maybe? Or do you think it was like dryness of the weather?
I think we had toured a bit and we had spent so much time writing, and I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I think as a vocalist too, I was always really trying to find my sweet spot to be able to like do what I do without really damaging my voice too much. And I didn't like the like fake screaming that a lot of bands, they just rah, they make a noise that sounds like a scream, but it's not like a scream. So I wanted to just be true to what I've always done and just fucking yell my ass off. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you can hear it on that record because it was toasted.
I'm going to go back and listen to it having heard you say that, because I just thought there was a really great variety of screaming vocals. So maybe there's some spots where you're going a little bit hoarse on it. Because I did hear one or two where I'm like, I think he went for a more emotive scream there, and it got a little bit warbly or crackly in there. But maybe it was, now you're saying, maybe it was like that's all I had in the tank at that time.
It could have been.
Yeah, but I mean, just... as this is now my opportunity to say, fucking vicious vocals, dude.
Oh, thank you.
Like, just kind of like, just enough wet and gargly, and I'm like, oh, fuck it. And I wish I knew a vocalist to compare you to, because I know there is one out there where I'm like, oh, he reminds me of so-and-so. Maybe Jay will know, because he's got the whole encyclopedia but like, I'm fucking listening to these vocals, and the clean vocals are great. I love that you can do that as well. But the vicious Fry vocal, man, I was like, oh, he's got real death metal vocals in there. I'm like, how did I overlook this back in the day? But listening to it last night, I was like, I fuck with this band hard. I fucking loved it, dude.
Thank you.
So you did a good job.
Thank you.
I would say almost like your scream sometimes, at least on the earlier stuff, like this stuff is you do this one scream and it's just this really harkens back to like Carcass or In Flames.
Yeah,
like, it's kind of like more of a death metal kind of. It's not like it's more like the you know what I mean. And so I really
Thomas Lindbergh a little
bit of that. I honed in on that. It's like more of the death metal type of like Fry vocal that's a little higher or whatever.
I attribute that to like Dan Wayant from Zao was my probably biggest influence as far as like a screaming vocal.
Okay.
Comes from, but then also Carcass.
Love Carcass.
I mean, a lot of his influence came from Carcass and like Iron Monkey, things like that. So couldn't help but like kind of like dive into some of that shit and really kind of try to harness that.
Yeah, and it's cool. I love it. And then, but Mike, he does most of the clean singing. Then
he does a lot of clean.
But
singing.
you've started to do more later, right?
Yeah. So the thing is that Mike and I are both choir guys.
Okay.
And while I'm the front man of Still Remains, so it's like I kind of focus on a lot of the screaming. But I also write, I would say the majority of the melody stuff.
Okay. Perfect.
So like,
awesome.
But it's cool. Mike and I have a really cool dynamic when we're able to get together and bounce ideas off of each other, because like I'll come in with like a lyric and maybe a melody, and he'll say like, why don't we do this? And he'll kind of like, he'll give it a different spin. And oftentimes it's like, I'll come up with the melody and he'll take that because it's more in his range. Like, especially like when I'm screaming, screaming just shrinks my range because it's damaging to my vocal cords, right? So like I'll tend to do like lower harmonies and stuff like that. So he'll just take the melody spot and do that, but his voice is wonderful for it.
Okay.
And it fits. But I'd say that like after Of Love and Lunacy, I wanted to come into my own more as, I wanted to work on that more, be more do more of the singing stuff, and you can hear it through the rest of the records.
Serpent.
The Serpent. You can hear it on Ceasing to Breathe, and then with our new stuff too. But Mike has a wonderful voice, and he's a great writing partner. When we get together. But yeah, Mike's awesome with the singing stuff for sure. He kills it.
All right, so you guys got the record done after your trials and tribulations with your vocals. Was you then like kind of disappointed because you didn't feel like you could pull off exactly what you wanted to with it then, or?
I don't really remember. I think it was still all of this like huge surreal thing. Like I know that it was like, I remember like struggling in the moment being in the booth, but then after that, like we flew back out to Vancouver to mix the record with Josh Wilbur, and that was super cool. And then, I think that after the album dropped, and we were touring so much, it was like I tried to go like, all right, I need to focus on my craft, and I need to focus on my voice, and I need to focus on trying to maneuver and find what I need to do to get myself to a point where I really like the way that I'm performing. I like the tone and the what this sounds like, and I'm also not just like killing myself every night,
Mm-hmm.
And that was getting on tours for me where there was somebody doing monitors and like, oh, I can hear myself. Because usually you're playing these smaller clubs.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's no monitors or nobody knows what they're doing or whatever, and all you can hear are the instruments. And so you're pushing so much harder as a vocalist to try to just fucking hear yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And all that's doing is just shredding,
Just blowing your vocals out.
So
it happens every time you can't hear it.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Every
So
time.
for me, even still, I'd say my biggest tool is just to be able to hear myself, and that helps get me to a place where I can kind of really navigate through my voice to find the sweet spot that I need to be in, to not just like fuck my whole world up and still be able to sing.
Yeah.
And it's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough.
It is, man. Because I've
really
noticed anytime I've ever done vocals, when I do them live, if I got a nice power behind the PA and I can hear everything, my vocals are right where I want them to be.
Yeah.
I can get the highs, I can get the lows. But then as soon as I go in the room over here or start recording, I'm like, everything just is so much different. It sounds different. Everything's just different. You don't have like that power to push through the PA. And I just don't know why that is, but I totally get what you're saying. And then
you need the right vibe in your ears, man. You got to hear it. You got to hear that right vibe.
Especially live though, too. Like if you got no monitors, your voice is just getting roached, man. They're fucking trying to sing.
So we're talking like 18, 20 years back now between Of Love and Lunacy and the time of the Serpent. So are we like before in-ear monitors? You're just getting like the wedges on the floor?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there were a lot of bands that were going over to in-ears, and
which would have been fairly new, especially in the metal world at the time.
Yeah. We didn't have like extra money. We didn't have a sponsorship or anything. We were trying. We were looking. But it just never. It was something that I always wanted so bad.
Right.
So bad. And it's like we're just starting to get into that more. Like we just bought an in-ear rig, and we're just trying to move to have like silent practices.
As of 2025?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Frankie Mish is helping us out in a massive way. He's a drummer from Hollow Front.
Okay.
And he came over the last couple of weeks, and he's hooking everything up for us because we don't know what the fuck we're doing.
Right.
That's what I would do is I would contact Michael from Vestigial or somebody that knows if I needed to get on that rig, which I would like to, but I would have to have somebody that knows what they're doing because for some reason it just doesn't. I mean, we've had a few bands on like Accuser of the Brethren, like, well, we just have a laptop and we just play it through the interface, and then one goes out here, one goes out there, or whatever. And
there's some really easy ways to do it.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for the last couple of years with Glassfield. Okay. We don't have a rig, but I'll just bring my little transmitter and receiver with me in my ears, and they can usually dial me in an okay mix in my ears, and it's better than nothing. And just try to make it work the best you can.
Yeah,
seems like a big cultural shift, and also I've heard it can be a financial investment.
Yeah. It is.
Okay,
definitely is a financial investment.
But I think if you want to be a word or a phrase we've tossed around the show is like industry standard. And I think that's something that if you want to be professional, if you want to be looked at, you want to get the right venue, the tour, you want to be on that page. You want to be able to operate with the in-ear monitors and the click track in the ear. I mean, is that an opinion you agree with or would impart into new musicians coming up?
I think it depends on how technical your band is.
Okay.
You know, with metal bands, especially like if you have a drummer that's playing to a click, like I don't have click in my ears because like I'm a very emotional guy and I need to connect emotionally with the song. So it's almost like I need to hear the song for what it is. Mm-hmm. And if there's just click blaring, it's almost like AJ, our drummer, is my click. You know what I mean? I'll just follow along to drums. Yeah. But for a band like Glassfield and things like that, you know, we really value like true, you know, live sound. We love the feel of like amps pushing air on stage.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying? So like we won't, I don't think, you know, I think it would be really cool if we moved over to like a whole in-ear rig, you know, but the guys would still use their amps for sure. Yeah. You know, and I don't know if Matt would play to a click or not. We try to kind of work some of that out a little bit because we have visuals and they need to sort of line up with, you know, roundabout where we're at in the music and everything else. But yeah, we try to do things as raw and as natural as possible in Glassfield. And I think that me as a musician, I more align with that. You know what I mean?
Same.
But still remains, it's a different animal altogether. And what we do is it's just in a different zone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It makes sense for us to do what we're doing in the way we're doing it. You know, the guys are moving away from amps and things like that, especially if, you know, you get a tour in the UK, like, no, we're not going to bring our amps, and it'd be great to just rent a backline or whatever, but like you don't even have to. You can just bring your quad or whatever you
save the money,
Kemper or quad or whatever.
Exactly, and then they're not on stage. You've got more room more room to move around on stage
and hooking shit up or whatever. Like if you know you're having a good PA, and that's one thing we always talk about on this show as well too. Is like at least if you have options, right?
Yeah,
because it all depends on what show you're going to play.
Yep.
If you want to play an underground show that might not have the best equipment, maybe you need those amps to push that air because then you can hear it.
Exactly.
But as long as you got those options, that makes it all worthwhile. But you almost need those options nowadays.
Yep.
But you want to tell me a little bit about touring then on this album? Because I know that was the goal was, you know, we're talking 2005, right? So
yeah.
Did you do Ozfest 2005?
We didn't do Ozfest.
You didn't?
No,
okay.
we never did Ozfest.
Did you do Warped Tour?
We did Warped Tour in 2007.
Okay.
That was after The Serpent came out.
Oh, okay. So
and you know, the tours that we did in 2005, I'm just trying to remember. We did like the Roadrunner Road Rage tour all over the US and then in Europe and UK, and that was with Trivium and 3 Inches of Blood and the Agony Scene. Agony Scene was on the US leg. They weren't on the European leg. But we went on to do the Kerrang tour.
Okay.
And that was massive. It was massive. I mean, Bullet had just done the Poison, so that was a fucking huge record in the UK. You know, and that was with Aiden and Hawthorne Heights and Bullet for My Valentine.
Okay.
And Still Remains really just was really on, you know, we were piggybacking on some of Bullet's momentum, I think.
Okay.
We had just released this record over there and we finally had a chance to play in front of like loads of people, and people were just like, who are these guys, you know? And so it kind of got to the point where we could come back and do a headliner, and it was pretty good, you know? But then we got some other touring opportunities over there too in the, you know, the following months and years that really helped us kind of like maintain that momentum and grow. We did the Stress tour in the US, and that was with like Shadows Fall. We kind of got tight with the Shadows Fall guys.
Hell yeah, that was cool.
We did we were on a couple of smaller Shadows Fall runs, and at first I think those guys were like, they wanted to kind of throw their weight around a little bit and kind of try to condition us. You know, like, you know,
where were they at in their career at this point? Are they on their second or third album at this point?
I don't recall. Maybe probably their second or third.
Okay.
It was, they weren't super early on in their career, but they were to the point where they had a pretty good draw.
Okay.
You know?
Cool.
And they were kind of a prominent metal band. And, you know, we did some smaller runs with them, and I think we had to prove ourselves to them.
Okay.
I don't think that they wanted to fuck around with their opener bands. You know, they wanted to do their shit and just kind of feel like they had everything under control. And I think that they noticed us because we were pros. We were professional. We had already toured a whole bunch. We knew how imperative it was to get your shit on the stage and you get it off now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You say that louder for the people in the back. Dude, holy shit.
If you want to tour as a band, it ain't going to happen for you unless you do what you need to do for the other bands on that tour. You help, you move your shit around, you just have to be easy to work with.
Yeah. Man, I have seen some bands, I think they're set up well enough, like they're partially set up off stage, but I've seen some changeover times that just kill show momentum.
Yeah.
When you're doing some of these local DIY shows and you're like, yay, it's just taking too long, boys. Like, somebody needs to figure something out because this needs to be 10 minutes tops.
Yeah.
Like, in my 10 to 15 minutes tops. But dragging it out to 20, almost 30 minutes downtime between acts is too fucking long for me.
And that's almost ridiculous. A full band set.
I know.
30 fucking minutes, man.
Yeah.
So I mean, even if it is that 30 minutes like before the headliner, at least the direct support band needs to get their shit off in like 5-10 minutes.
Right.
Don't throw it in your cases. Get it off the stage.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that shit afterwards.
Break it down out there.
Yeah.
You don't need to. You're not taking cymbals off stands on stage unless you're the last band or whatever. But
and dude, they come to you and they're like, holy shit, you guys, thank you so much, and then you gain respect.
Yeah.
You gain respect, and then they start watching your set, and they're like, these guys are fucking cool.
Hell yeah.
These guys are fucking cool. And then like a few months later, hey, you guys were great. You guys want to come on this run?
Nice.
And you're like, fuck yeah, we do. Let's fucking party. And then they're like, Still Remains, what's up, you guys? And you're just like, yeah, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So this tour, Shadows Fall, Poison the Well.
Yeah.
It Dies Today, Still Remains, and then it says other acts such as Darkest Hour,
yes,
Bury Your Dead.
Bury Your Dead was on a little bit of it, and Zayo was on it for a minute.
And then it says Suffocation. Was Suffocation on one of the?
Yeah, dude.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
that's sick, dude.
And Zayo was on it too, and that to me was like, oh my god, they're like my heroes. You know what I mean?
But that's badass, dude.
So yeah,
fuck yeah.
Can I ask, how was it for you, like meeting your heroes? Was that all right? Like, because sometimes that can be like, oh, these guys are dicks.
Oh, it's nerve wracking. I mean, but they, Zayo's not like this massive band either. You know what I mean? So they're playing kind of like the same size clubs we are.
Right. They're from maybe like a little bigger. Indy or Chicago or something, aren't they? I don't think they're too far away, are they? Or at least,
no, they're in PA somewhere.
Oh, okay.
So, but that's not that far,
right?
Yeah.
4 or 5.
But it was super cool. I mean, ask me how it was on Ceasing to Breathe to have Dan, the singer, do a guest track. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Like that was cool. And now he and I are buds, and we talk about Souls games all the time on Facebook.
That's great.
I
love it.
I love it. That's badass, dude.
Yeah.
All right, so we kind of spent a long time on that first record, but that was such
a lot of history, though.
Yeah, it's such a pivotal part for Still Remains, and probably you as a musician just being able to, do these big tours and all that. How was touring life just at this time for you? I mean, you were young, right? So, but
it was very hit and miss. I mean, lots of amazing things. I mean, we obviously had really good opportunities.
Correct.
But then it was like if we didn't get on a tour like that, like a good tour, well, you guys need to do a headliner then. It's like, all right, what's that going to do? Like we're not like a big band in the US at this point. We played so many headliners that were just miserable.
Yeah.
And it got to the point sometimes where it's like, we're not established yet. And I know it's hard work that we need to put in, but you'll hit a show in the Midwest or West Coast or somewhere where, you're selling out like a 500 cap room and you're just like, fuck yeah. But then like the next day you're playing somewhere in the middle of Texas where there's like 20 kids and you're just like, holy shit, what is going on?
Yeah.
And obviously grateful for those 20 kids.
Right.
You're always super grateful for that. But it's like a vibe killer. And you almost have to kind of like get in this mindset where you're like, all right, guys, like consider this a practice.
Basically.
Consider it that, you've got a bunch of loyal fans at this practice and they get a chance to watch you play. So like, let's fucking kill it for them. But it's tough to get in that mindset.
Right.
When you're used to playing bigger shows or whatever. But, so yeah, it's kind of a mind fuck at times, and it goes in and out of that. But, the US is just really interesting.
Yeah.
It's really interesting,
A lot of different pockets of like fan bases, right? Like from coast to coast, maybe more hardcore here, maybe more psychedelic there. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely.
So
you see that,
and it's almost one of those things where tell yourself, don't get too high and don't get too low. So don't get too high because you've played in front of these 500 kids and they're going crazy buying all your shit. And then the next night you only sell 10 shirts because you're in front of 20 people. So you can't really bum yourself out about it either because you played them bigger rooms. So
it's a mind fuck.
But yeah, it is got to be.
Because you do get bummed. You do get bummed.
I bet. Because you drive to fucking Texas.
Yeah, it
and
took 9 hours to get here.
With all your equipment.
State. Yeah.
You got all your shit there. You got to move stuff. It's a lot of work, man.
It's a lot.
So I wanted to get into something on the touring life, and maybe you can shed some wisdom now looking back. Were there the things that you needed to be very grounded for in terms of excesses and challenges and things where you had to say, like, draw a line or set a boundary for yourself? Where you're like, no, that's too far, or were you not really exposed to things like that, like excessive party life, or say like
women,
or trouble, like just misbehavior of like, let's fuck this hotel room up, or was everything? Were you lucky to avoid a lot of that?
Yeah. So we did our fair share of. I guess you could say we partied.
Okay.
But we didn't, we didn't go down the avenue of like women and drugs.
Right.
So like the guys would drink a bit. And
Sure.
and for me that was hard, and that kind of contributed to like us breaking up because I was raised by this addict who I saw alcohol, and drugs around all the time, and it really fucked me up as a kid.
Sure.
So I had this totally skewed like image that I just of this person that I just didn't want to become,
right.
that were in my parents. And so like when I saw the guys, get off the stage and like, let's go party, let's go drink, blah 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 blah, like it made me want to seclude myself. It freaked me out. And I was trapped in some other state or another country where I didn't have any sort of like safe place or anything or whatever. And so that was really, really tough for me. But also on the other side of that, you grow older and you learn and whatever. And I realize now I've had to really kind of come to terms with so many things and just process so many things. And it's like, I don't think those guys, I love these guys. They're like, they're some of my closest friends. Obviously, we've toured the world together and we've had the weird times and the times where I was secluding myself and didn't want anything to do with them and blah, blah, blah. We've all worked through that together. And I'm at a point where I'm 42 years old. I'm like, these guys weren't like crazy partiers or alcoholics. They're kids getting the chance to go on the road and have some fucking fun.
Right.
That's it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I really wish that I hadn't had some of the traumatic experiences growing up that I did have, so I could have enjoyed that more with them.
Right. At least just hang out, if not participate, then just be there and laugh and enjoy it more.
And I would have a couple drinks here and there, but there were times where things got a little, unruly. We never trashed hotel rooms and stuff, but they were fun guys.
Yeah. Sure.
They were fun guys. I can't, I think in years past I probably had some like negative things to say about it, but I've come to terms with so much of it. And I think a lot of the problem was me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair.
I have to admit that in order to grow,
And just that reflection too, like being able to reflect on that and being like,
it's healthy.
They weren't in. Maybe they didn't take your feelings into consideration. Well, TJ grew up around this, so like maybe this might be offensive. They weren't really thinking like that. And as a young kid, you don't think like that anyway. Your mindset's not even right there, So
we talked about those things a little, but I don't know if they really saw the big picture of like what I had seen. And I don't expect them to live the way that I was trying to live either.
Right. I feel like I can relate to you, but at the same time, I feel like I would have been a party animal. And I'm kind of glad now looking back on it that it didn't happen for me. Because there's a part of me that thinks you might have died, bro. Like, because I'm given to excess. Like, once the ball's rolling and I'm having fun, like, I'm not an addict. I've never had a problem with addiction, alcoholism, or otherwise. How I am addicted to fun. Like, I'm like, if it's fun, I'm there for it.
Yeah.
And things that I wouldn't normally seek out might have sought me out. It's like, hey, this guy's easy. Like he wants to go ham. I can see it. So I think for me, like the idea of like, had I had any amount of success in the music industry in my 20s, I might have fucking died. Like just being real, all things considered, like I was just given to excess. Like if we're partying after the fact, I just got off a stage in front of like a bunch of people and everybody's loving you. like there's no, like I'm like Dave Mustaine. I'm like there's no line, there's no boundary for me. Now I'm in my 40s. I'm like there's shit I just won't do.
Yeah.
There's hours that I don't want to see, you know, and then into the night, I'm like once we get to 12 o'clock, like the fucking carriage turns into the pumpkin, you know, the glass slipper turns into the fucking, you know, the woolly ugly slipper. You know, I mean, it's like I don't want to be up past 12. So
yeah.
Now I'm not getting, and I got the kid, I got the wife, I got the home.
Yeah, you got to be responsible.
Yeah, so now it's easy to make those decisions. But when you don't have anything to lose, you know, like if you're in your 20s, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh man, we're gonna be a big rock star band and party.
Yeah,
be grounded. Yeah. Like just know now that you know it could go bad. You don't know what's out there waiting for you. Yeah. Like you know what kind of people are going to want to say, like use your fame and your rock star status for the evening and say, hey man, let's party harder. Let's take it to the next level.
Yeah. You know, I saw some of that though as like I wanted this.
Okay.
You know, like what still remains. Like I wanted it. Like I wanted us to succeed. I would have everybody would love to get to the point like if you sign a record deal and you start touring and whatever, like how cool would that be to get to the point where this can just pay your mortgage.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like and I didn't want to be like a big famous person or a big rock star or anything, but like I wanted this thing that I had put so much love and time into to go the distance. I wanted to play the big shows. I wanted to get the good opportunities. I wanted us to be considered a great band. And I think that some of the partying and whatever can get in the way of that, especially, you know, like for singers or for guitar players or anybody that's physical, anybody in a band, you know what I mean? So it's like if you've got like a big festival show you're playing, you know, like everybody's got to be on top of their shit.
Yeah.
No mistakes. Let's not party the night before. Let's fucking take this serious. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I think we were all just so stoked that we felt like we could just do whatever and we would be all right. And sometimes maybe we could, sometimes maybe we couldn't. But I think I probably took it a little too serious too.
Somebody's got to, I feel like. I mean, you might be hard on yourself and think, well, maybe I was too serious or maybe they weren't serious enough. But if you don't have somebody that has that mindset in the band, I don't think the band's going to make it. Like you can't just be 5 party animals and then just get that fucking lucky.
And, you know, and they weren't always party animals either. You know, I want to preface that. Like they're not a bunch of crazy guys at all. But and like I said, they were just having some fun.
I wasn't even really taking that away from what you were saying.
Good,
anyway.
No, I don't want them to either. I love you guys if you hear this.
No, I was thinking you were just talking in generals. Basically like, and I mean, the world is changing such a way now that that's not even a way of life anymore. Like, you just need to be about your shit. Like, your music, you need to, you know, if that's something you're trying to accomplish nowadays, you really
the Led
just need to be about
Zeppelins
it.
and the Panteras have kind of moved. They've moved into other genres of music to where maybe it's easier to get away with that, you know, like where everything's just coming out of the PA as an electric thing, like EF or something. Like, maybe you can live that lifestyle, right? You can go out there and party and be that kind of person. But if you're trying to like write and record metal, there's not a lot of room, I think, for like the party life. Even on the smallest scale, like you just a couple of drinks and smoking some pot. Well, maybe not tonight because I got a long road ahead of me to the next show.
Right. Absolutely.
So you don't want to arrive fucking strung out on or hungover or something.
No,
you know what I mean?
Of course not. Yeah.
So I wanted you to speak to that because we don't get a lot of touring artists in here. I mean, eventually we're going to see some more, or some musician listening to the show is going to want to have that insight. You know, I want them to know, like, hey, have some boundaries for yourself. Like,
boundaries are so important.
Like, just have some some boundaries and just some grounded, you know, behaviors.
So I want to talk about maybe anything else that we left off, and I do want to get into, you know, more of the catalog or whatever, you know, the other few releases, but I know the big thing is we're celebrating 25 years of this, or 20 years of this, right?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yep, 20 years.
So I don't want to like cram this in at the end when we're running out of time, because that's kind of the whole point of, like, I wanted to have you on because I know this is kind of a big thing. It's 20 years of, you know, of that album that kind of made you who you were, really, man, if you think about it, you know, and let you experience all the things you got to experience. So a lot of that has shaped you as a person. So I want to just make sure we, you know, really land home on 20 years of this album. We got a show coming up, right, for it?
Yeah, we're doing a show at the Pyramid Scheme in August. I think it's August 16th.
Okay.
I think. And we're gonna play the record in full for the first time ever.
Nice.
There's there's stuff on there that we've never played before.
Okay.
And I think we're gonna try to play a new song as well.
Cool.
And maybe a couple other ones.
Nice.
So tickets are selling for that. They are available. If people want to come, I think they should, because it's gonna be really cool.
Well, you got Wounded Touch too, right?
Yeah, Wounded Touch, dude.
Them guys fucking rule.
Yeah. I just did a song with them on their new record. That
hell yeah.
Turned out super great.
Nice. I haven't jammed it yet. We did have Mike
Poe
on the show. Yeah,
he's
we
my
had him
boy.
on the show. Obviously, we did a Zoom thing, and actually Nick wasn't there for it either. But a band I'd love to have to sit down on the show and really go through. But love those guys. We've actually jammed with them before too, and Iron Sharpens Iron. But super badass. I love those guys.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah. Their music is
I love
killer.
it.
So
it is.
What are the other bands? Isn't there another? Is there one more band?
I think Cause for Conflict is opening it.
Okay, there was I knew there was another band, but I wasn't familiar with that band. But
TJ, I was going to quickly ask, what is the expect? You got the full length of the album. How much more set time do you think you'll have besides that?
Probably, I would say another. I don't know.
10?
I don't want to.
10, 15? You
Probably
think,
more than that.
I think you'll get an hour or more in?
I think so.
All right, that's fucking awesome.
I think so. I think we'll play it for over an hour.
Definitely. I mean, man, 45 minutes is like killer, but an hour of material of your own.
Yeah.
Kudos. Look,
I just say because the record is pretty long, isn't it? It's
45.
top 40s or something, right?
Ish, yeah. I want to say it's closer to like 49 or something like that.
Yeah,
that's my sweet spot.
It's always funny to me too, because like you kind of see like nowadays the albums seem to be a little bit shorter, but when you go back and listen to some of these albums, you're 50, 60, 70 minutes, on some of these older albums, because that's just the way it was. 13, 14 songs in an album. That's how we recorded it. You're getting this hour plus of music or close to an hour of music. That was just the way it was done in 2005.
And you better be able to hope that entire record is going to keep my focus.
Right. Yeah.
and better be good.
That's the thing. Nowadays we're looking at anywhere from a full length, like a Nails 18 minutes to a 36-minute album or something, it's like, so it's.
I love Nails. Nails is great.
Yeah.
Jay fucking loves Nails, but I had to rake it over the coals a little bit.
Oh, dude, it's so good. It's just fucking.
It's just 18 minutes of fuck you. That's what I like about it.
The thing I always say is like, I just need more melody. So like, Enter still remains, and I'm like, fuck.
See, I listen to the stuff that's got probably less melody, like like Converge, like that's my shit, or like End. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's the stuff that I really kind of dial into. But I'm also more of a melodic like vocalist and songwriter too.
Yeah.
So it's like I want the best of both worlds. And Still Remains doesn't really get into the noisy stuff much. And but like if that's all I want to do is just like rage. You know what I mean?
Fuck
that's my shit.
You guys' heaviest element might be your vocals. Like, I mean, there's some riffs. There's some super heavy riffs in there. Like, but a lot of it is, you got the songwriting, so you got the power chords and you got the melody. So you're not like this deathcore band where it's breakdown after breakdown after noise making riff. But them vocals are so vicious that can be like as heavy as you need to be at times. It's just let TJ scream his balls off.
Let me go.
Yeah, but I love it.
So is there anything else you want to say about Of Love and Lunacy before we move on to more of...
I would just say for the show, like I said a minute ago, just grab some tickets. We want to see everybody there. I mean, we want to make that show super special.
Everybody listening, brush up on the lyrics, because I got some choruses to sing back.
Yes.
Get in there.
Hey, I'm 42 years old. I'm going to need the help.
All transparency here on
transparent.
The Metal Man.
I think all things being equal, you got to love when the fans are singing your words back at you in your face, right? Because you got those choruses that just say, "Sing me, please, everybody." Like, not just me, just me and Mike. The whole room, please. Let's do this chorus together. So I'd say if they're listening to the show today, brush up on some choruses, if nothing else. Get ready to sing with Mike and TJ.
Absolutely.
Fucking A.
Yep.
We talked about Of Love and Lunacy. We pretty much covered everything. Make sure you get your tickets for that. Let's go into The Serpent a little bit. We don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but so I turned this album on. Still on Roadrunner Records. To me, same band, but it's completely different to me.
Yeah, it is.
And maybe I'm overpicking it because me and Modd always kind of preface each other and talk about things before the show. And he's like, it fit along with that. To me, it was like I don't know. There was even in parts, dude. The Dancing with the Enemy, that's literally a dance song to me.
Yeah. It's song fucking sucks.
So I mean, I won't say that because I still thought it was a good album, but to me it was just like, dude, I need some grit a little bit, and to me, your vocals still had grit on them. And there was still some heaviness. There's some double bass. There's a little bit, but this to me, this is way far removed from.
Oh yeah. Before you come in, I want to give my review of it first because I don't want there to be an overcritical feeling in the room here.
Oh, it's okay.
To me, to me, it's a consistent catalog, from the first album, second, and the third. I will say this, though. It's a little bit more polished, and we did lean into a little bit more of the clean vocals, and I could see where, like, it's a little bit more accessible for a wider audience.
Yeah.
So there's, a huge emphasis on the clean vocals, but the riffs were still there. We were still heavy. We're just not as heavy as maybe the last album. But to me, I was like, it still sounds like Still Remains. They're doing all the things from the first album. I wasn't, like put off by it. I fucking loved it. Honest to God. Now, did I love every song? Maybe not as much, but as I'm listening to it, I'm like, they got some good songs on here. Man, I thought based on what I had read, like this might be like a real far departure from Of Love and Lunacy. I didn't feel that way, but I just wanted to get my 2 cents in first so that we had some balance in the room where I didn't feel like this was a bad album at all whatsoever. I won't hear it. Like I'm not entertaining like it's not that good, or I could just see maybe some disappointed fans if they wanted a heavier Still Remains and they got no, we're doing more choruses, we're doing more singing, and if people were let down by that, well, too fucking bad. This is what we wanted to create. So
yeah.
Let me just. I don't want you to think I'm saying it's a bad album.
No, it's okay
because it's a good album. I just felt like it lost a lot of that, like where we talked before, where like we really had this In Flames influence because you had these guitar passages and these melodies and stuff. I felt like a lot of that was missing.
Yeah.
A lot of that was gone. Yeah. A lot of that, what I fell in love with Still Remains, the parts that really gravitated towards me. But I'm just a heavy fucking nut junkie, and I just love all the heavy shit, and that's just me because I'm weird like that. But
I love the melody.
But great songs still, man. Great melodies. I mean, it's a fucking clinic in songwriting. It was still good, but it's just like it is a departure from what you guys were doing before. So do you want to now? You want to?
Yeah. I think a lot of that was, we had toured for a few years on, the last 2 things we did, on the EP and then Of Love and Lunacy. And by the time we got done touring with Love and Lunacy, you're playing shows and tours where it's like the same 4 or 5 bands every night, and everybody's trying to do the same thing. Everybody's just starting to sound the same.
Yeah.
We wanted to kind of set ourselves apart, and we knew that we had all of this, like, these melodic capabilities. Mike and I, like I said, we grew up with more education musically and like, choir vocals and things like that. I think we wanted to kind of lean into that a little bit more on that record to kind of just showcase, like, hey, you guys know we could do this kind of thing. And maybe we leaned the opposite way that we should have. We should have kind of really like harnessed our strengths as a metal band and some of the heavier stuff we were doing and tried to do that better, So it's just trial and error. We were all still pretty young.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of heavy moments on that record that we recognize as a band were the best moments of the record too, we don't think that all the singing is bad per se, but it, Still Remains is Still Remains. I think we grew into the band, everybody knowing who we were. We had this identity already established. So for us to kind of veer away from it a little bit was kind of like, what are they doing? And it was well received, like overseas, not as well received over here. So it's just like it's confusing.
Yeah, the dichotomy.
Kind of like, what do we do? What should we really lean into?
It's dad and stepmom and the 2 parents pulling you each way. Like,
and there was some label influence too. You guys are going to be the next like Papa Roach. You guys are going to be able to buy houses off this stuff and blah blah blah. It's like, oh, cool. Well, maybe we should play into that a little bit and see what we see if we can get on like the radio or whatever. And we felt like we were strong enough and capable enough. But
for sure. So then after this album, so what does that look like then? Okay, you guys are going to make money off of this album. Did it not aspire to what you thought it was going to,
Not at all.
Or what that label said it was going to?
No, I mean, we didn't have like much press on that record. They didn't push it.
Okay.
They just didn't push it. I mean, we were still doing good like overseas with it and stuff like that. And we continued to kind of get those opportunities and the bigger opportunities. But in the States, it was almost like, we just kind of felt like we just didn't really belong.
Okay. So now, did we tour on this album as well? Did you guys? Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Same kind of thing, just grinding out some states and some European and.
Yeah, I mean, we did U.S. tours.
Okay.
But yeah, we did. We went to. We did Europe and the UK, and we did Australia. We did Japan. Just all over the place.
Did you find a different reception with some of this music, or was it still because it was mixed in? It wasn't as.
We tried to have like a pretty good set, like a heavy leaning set throughout. There were times where we would play. I think we only did that Dancing with the Enemy song on like one tour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like a song like Stay Captive on the Serpent, that was a bigger singing song. But even though that particular song still had a lot of singing in it, it was all singing, it still sounded like us to me.
Yeah.
So we would incorporate that one. We would incorporate some of the other heavy songs on the record.
Maybe like Avalanche or something.
Yeah,
like
we would
that.
do Avalanche.
We
love that song.
Yeah, that was
great song.
That one's pretty heavy too.
Stood out to me as well.
Yeah.
Fucking loved it.
And then right shortly after, 2008, you go into the hiatus, basically, right?
Yeah, we broke up.
Okay.
We just said this. Yeah, we just can't do this anymore.
We're still in our 20s, though, right? Are we we're now in our mid to late 20s at this point?
Yeah.
But everybody's just kind of like. So, was there some sense of burnout, or were we feeling like creatively we didn't do what we maybe should have for the Serpent?
I think there were a lot of compounding issues.
And we don't have to talk about anything that you feel like.
No, it's okay.
We don't try to de-edify on this show.
No, I don't get that vibe at all. Yeah. Some of it for me was the stress of secluding myself a lot. Just wanting to take things more serious. I didn't want to be around a lot of the partying and things like that, and it makes me sound like I'm a fucking prude, and it is what it is.
Man, I mean,
these are all growing pains.
Yeah.
I was still young, figuring it out. So that was really me that called for the breakup. But also, we were tired. I was fucking tired, and it wasn't sustainable when you're in your mid-20s. Like, who wants to come home and live with their parents?
Yeah,
right.
Like I had a girlfriend, and we had an apartment, and I had a cell phone bill, and I had, car payment and whatever. And it's like, got to pay that shit.
Yeah, like real life starts to happen.
Real life is happening, but we're also touring, and so it's a couple of the guys were married, and so it's when you're not coming home with money, any money you make either is recouping the record, or if it's paying off tour support, or if it's paying off merch debt, or if it's paying this or that. You don't come home with anything, and you're just like, well, now, what do I do?
Well, at some point, anything can be fun, but then you can just get bored of the fun. It's not fun anymore. And you can go out there and do it for fun.
And you can have a blast touring, but when you come home to the reality of like what you need to take care of,
you just missed 2 to 3 months of income, and now I got to go and get a job, or I can imagine where it's like, look, I can't do this to break even anymore. If this thing don't pay bills, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
Exactly,
you know what I mean?
dude.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it's at some point, to your point, it is a business.
It is.
And you got to lean into it with that respect. Otherwise, you're just going to go out there and keep partying and keep having fun and keep playing shows. And it's like, well, playing shows is cool. Playing shows all the time and not having anything to show for it.
That's
exhausting.
the tough thing.
Because now you can't have a memory of every night. You can go out there and play all these shows. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Sure, it says I was there.
we could have kept doing it. We could have kept going and doing it, and maybe it would have eventually gotten better and easier and whatever. But I think that kind of in the place we were at, I was ready to kind of just make sure that like my life wasn't going to suck later.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's just hanging out of that dream to the 32, 33, 35. You're like, I'm doing it. And you're like, and I'm still eating hand-on ham sandwiches. Yeah, I get it, man. And that should be a wake-up call too. It's like, dude, you got signed to this fucking huge label. You did all these crazy tours, and it's not this metal shit ain't rock star life, bro.
It's
you know,
not,
it's
nobody's getting rich quick off of this.
Not
shit,
off
man.
metal, bro. You know, even if you try and just change your sound a little bit to lean more towards that, doesn't always mean it's gonna work out. You know, so
right.
But go on hiatus. That was like 2008 or whatever. You guys all went off and did other things. Now, before I want to get into the reunion, and then obviously I want to get into Ceasing to Breathe. But how did you feel after that? Did you feel defeated, or did you feel more energized because you're like, well, I guess I'm going to get on with my life? Like, because you started, you said you messed with a little bit with the From the Raven project. I'm sure you had some other ideas. Did you ever have the idea that maybe the next musical thing you did could succeed as well as Still Remains or surpass that?
That was never a goal.
Okay.
To me.
I was just wondering if that was like, you kind of was like, I gave it everything I had, and now maybe real life starts on this path.
The thing is that I know that, like, especially in the metal genre, a band like Still Remains is probably going to appeal to more people because of, I guess, the style that it is. So, but like, I think when I was kind of over that for that, those couple years, there was this part of me that just kind of was resentful, and I was I don't really want to do music right now.
Mm-hmm.
I needed a break.
Mm.
But then having the opportunity to start writing again with people that I respect, like the From the Raven thing was just, it was like a summer thing, and it was me and Matt Yonker.
Okay.
Matt,
yeah.
He plays drums in Glassfield,
yeah.
and he sings in Ozenza and whatever. Yep. And then Dan Wheaton, he's from out here.
Yeah,
we know Dan.
And then Josh Stacy. It was like the four of us, doing From the Raven, and it was just for a summer writing some stuff. But it was kind of it pivoted from like, okay, I'm in this metalcore genre, kind of doing the touring thing. It's more accessible, it's kind of getting out there and getting popular. But I can actually like focus on playing with guys that I've grown up to watch and respect a whole lot, kind of in my own local scene, and I can play music that may be a little. That resonates with me a little bit better.
Yeah, more true to you, basically.
Yeah, and so that was really cool. That was really cool to be able to kind of just do something different, and I still feel that way as far as, like playing with Glassfield or, doing the Dead Me stuff, just things that are a little bit out of what I'm so used to,
Yeah.
So the pressure was kind of off in a way.
Yeah.
There was some relief.
There was relief because I can focus more on just, satisfying myself musically, or just not taking it so fucking serious.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my next question, was going to be like, when we're in Still Remains, we're taking it seriously, right? And we're focused. Did that carry over, or did it kind of wash away and like, hey, if we're practicing, let's be there. I'm that serious about it, but I don't have my whole life pinned to it.
Yeah. I still take what I do in any project very serious.
Sure.
But it's not like I've got this ultimate goal as to kind of just like it being like a worldwide phenomenon or anything like that.
Yeah,
it's really just like, I want to do the best we can, even if we're just playing, once every couple months in a local capacity. Like, I just want it to be the best it can.
Right.
I want it to be honest though.
Yeah.
I want it to be who we are. I want it to represent us well. And not everybody needs to love it.
Yeah.
But I want to put my all into it.
But you want to love it.
Right.
Yeah. That's the most important thing to me.
Right.
Like, I freaking love this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I get to play with Glassfield, and we're, it's more of an emotional kind of set than it is metal and whatever.
For sure.
I need that connectivity. It's like really therapeutic.
Yeah.
And it helps me because I'm a fucked up individual. You know what I mean? So It's like I need that like emotional stimulation through music and just playing to just feel like I'm me.
Same.
Yeah.
I feel so weird outside of music.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
No,
I work a career. I'm a project manager. I manage a team of like 8 people, and it's like nothing that I ever could guess that I would have ever done in my life. You know what I mean?
Fair.
But like when I can kind of step outside that and just get in a room and put in those in-ears and hear everybody and just lose myself in that, that's where I feel like I am myself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
And it would be nice to be yourself in your career too, but
sure.
For musicians, that's the trick, right?
It's-
I would, like I always look at non-musicians, I'm like, how do you live? How do you live?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do? Because I can't like go to work and be like, this is me.
We're weird.
This is what I want to do.
It's so weird.
I want to build this thing for this other person that I don't care about. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here. So for me, like getting that 9 to 5 grind in, it's like, I get it. You got to make money. You got to pay the bills. But I'm like, how do you not blow your head off? Like 5 years of it. Like, because
if you don't have anything else, or like everything else is just your Sunday watching football, like I will never understand that, because like I always got to be working on something that's bigger than me, or something to. I get that.
So thank God for music, right?
Yeah,
I mean, video games, or just something to take you away for a bit and just kind of.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm big into the lose yourself into your video games or your book or your TV show. I've been watching a lot of TV shows lately, but I still kind of carry that little dream in my pocket. I'm like, I know I'm mid-40s, but who's to say I don't break before I'm 50? Like, call me crazy, man. Like my kid's kind of grown. I asked the wife, like, can I do a 2-week tour if this band breaks? I still kind of dream it a little bit. I don't expect to like pay my bills or anything, but I would love to be in a band that had the capacity to tour or take it seriously and write music that means something. But I'm with you, man. Like, I got to have the melody. I got to have the emotional connection to it. Like, there's got to be some songwriting structure. So, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about then just the reunion, how that came about, and then we'll jump into Ceasing to Breathe.
Okay. So there were a couple of years where we had broken up. We weren't in much contact with each other. I think in that time, things just needed to we needed to go to our separate ways. We spent every day together, so it was like, so after that, we had a lot of time to reflect. Maybe some things healed a little bit. Haste the Day reached out, and they were like, hey, you guys want to play a show with us down in Indianapolis? And we were like, we thought we had to think about it for a little bit. A couple of us were like, well, yeah, let's do it. And then it was this idea of like, well, if we do this, well, maybe we could play a show every once in a while, or maybe we could like release something or whatever. And at first I was just not keen on that. But after talking with, I think it was Jordan, we had a couple of talks on the phone, and I think I just kind of let my mind at ease about it, and like, hey, this could be really fun. Why would I want to pass up the opportunity to get back on stage and have a good time? And so we did it. And it ended up being a really good thing. We felt really good about it. It was a badass experience and show, and we were like, let's see if there's any, fuel in the tank. So we decided that we were going to just try to write a couple songs and see where that would go. And so we went over. We spent a little time throwing some ideas around. We came up with a couple of songs. We came up with like 4 songs, but 2 of them were like really finished. And felt good. They were called Reading Lips and Checkmate.
Okay.
And we went over and recorded those in Ann Arbor with Josh Schroeder. And they turned out great. And we were like, we're just going to just knock everyone's socks off and say, hey guys, Still Remains, here's 2 new Still Remains songs. And everybody's just be like, what the fuck? Are they back? Whatever. We threw them out there online, and we were just watching the streams and the downloads just king,
nice.
Like in real time. It was nuts.
Hell yeah.
All of a sudden, like, I'm getting a call from Jamie Josta wondering if he can sign us to Rise, and I'm just like, bro, I appreciate it, but like,
damn, bro,
we're not going to tour, so
what's a good assign me when I'm not going to be out there on the road? Yeah,
we would love it if you want to like license it and get it out there and whatever. Maybe we can play here and there, but like, I doubt you want to sign a band that can't tour. We were all like kind of starting to have kids and whatever.
Mortgages.
Yeah, mortgages.
Yeah,
I just bought a house, getting married, things like that, and life's starting to get real, but putting out some really cool music, and I mean, some more opportunities presented themselves, but we kind of had to say sorry.
Yeah.
And then eventually, a year or 2 later, what was it, 2013, we did Ceasing to Breathe.
Yep.
Put that out ourselves.
Okay. And then, so that was like Kickstarter crowdfunding thing?
Yeah.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, we wanted to be able to do it kind of on our own terms, and we just knew we needed some money. We didn't have it, and we were like, well, would our fans want to contribute to this if they got something out of it? And it turned out to be a real success.
Yeah, well, I'll just tell you, the album was fucking fantastic.
Man,
I loved it. As soon as it came on and it was heavy as shit, I was like, okay, we didn't go further down the serpent path. We kind of came back around and even went heavier than
the other way.
Love. You know, like some of the songs on here, Keeping Secrets, it's so heavy. There's actually even some grind on it. I'm like, now these guys are speaking even more my language when I start hearing some blast beats and shit. Ceasing to Breathe, the song is just an amazing song. The heavy vocals on Hopeless, they're just fantastic. Your vocals on this are absolutely incredible, dude.
Thank you.
The clean singing is awesome too. The songwriting, this album blew me away actually, dude, because I went through your whole catalog, listened to Serpent. Like I said, I don't think it's a bad record. It's just a little different. And I didn't know if Ceasing to Breathe, I was gonna get into a full-fledged dance party when it came on. And then when y'all came in heavy as shit and punched me in my teeth, I was like, fuck yeah, dude, this is fucking the shit. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. I think it's fucking great, dude.
And just for the record, like, you certainly don't have to like the Serpent. Like, we don't really like. I mean, there's moments that we like.
Sure. I get it.
But so like, just know that I'm not offended. You guys are more than welcome to be critical or have your opinions on it. It's all good. Like, I don't take it personal.
Even if we were critical, we probably wouldn't be overly critical on air. That's just the nature of the beast. Like, I'm not going to sit here and like, oh, it sucks, thumbs down on that. To me, both albums make sense in the context of your first album of Love and Lunacy. Sure. On the one end, you lean into the Serpent. Now we're doing more choruses and singing, and the sound is almost a little bit lighter, but I wouldn't want to scare anybody off from it because it's still a Still Remains album. It still has all the components. It is, for some people, unfortunately for them, it's not going to be heavy enough.
Right, yeah.
Now when you get to Ceasing to Breathe, shit, now we're fucking heavy as fuck. Right. Like, we've been lifting weights. we've been drinking our protein shakes.
Fucking back to just finger exercises.
Man, like this has got bigger, nastier teeth than anything you've ever done before, but it's also Still Remains.
Yes.
It sounds like the last two albums. You still got the clean singing. You still got the choruses. To me, like, you guys are criminally underrated.
I can't wait to show you some new shit.
I'm stoked. We need to be done with the show so I can hear it. No, but I mean, for
not
people,
much more time. We got a couple more minutes.
For people listening to this, if you're still stuck on Of Love and Lunacy, that's fine. We all get nostalgic and we all like what we know, and it's been 20 years, and it's going to be hard to come off of that. Look, if you haven't listened to Ceasing to Breathe, like, listen to it immediately after this podcast. Jay and I were stoked on this thing. Yeah. Like, we were so high on it. I was like, damn. I'm like, I thought I knew this band, but I guess I didn't because I wouldn't, like, why don't I own this? Like, why am I not following this band closely enough to know this fucking album is out for 12 years now?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I snoozed on it for this long. Nobody brought it to me. Nobody said shit about it.
It's all right. We're an indie band. A lot of people just didn't know.
Yeah.
We didn't have any way to market it aside from like, here, we're just going to throw this on Facebook.
Right.
Like, I mean, what do you do?
When there's nobody.
That's the tough thing too, is the marketing there.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, and we are just the Metal Maniacs podcast, and we have a little bit of a following. But I mean, anybody listening hasn't like listened to this album yet, put it on.
Yeah,
like,
do yourself a favor. And listen to
this thing's got some teeth on it. It's heavy, man. It's so good. The clean vocals, the rough vocals, the keyboard elements there, but we're not. It's the opposite swing of the door from the Serpent.
Yeah.
Now we did the lighter album. Now we did the heavier album, and I'm really excited to hear what's next because obviously Jay and I want to have the heavier stuff, but I'm a huge proponent of the melody and the song structure. Yeah. And otherwise, it's kind of like otherwise we're just going to go off the rails into like some deathcore or something where there's just breakdowns and chugs and no song structure,
soupy
and that's fine. It's got its moments. You can get into that for 10 or 15 minutes, but I got to have what you guys do with the melody and the song structure and the choruses, and it all makes sense. It all comes together nicely. But I mean, great work on. I just wanted to throw some praise on you because
thank you so much,
dude. What a great album. Yeah. Everybody involved
Fantastic.
on that, man. Fucking great record.
Thank you so much.
Mod put that great. It's almost like he took the best elements of everything and then just kicked it up even one more notch because he didn't lose. Like, I felt like, and I'd like to hear you speak on it, obviously, but I felt like you were like, we have all these good elements and we could make this heavy, but we don't have to be over the top. Like, we can still add in, like, maybe make up for a little bit that wasn't on the Serpent. So we get, because there's almost like some death metal vocals on this too, which I didn't hear the low shit in like any of the other stuff. You know what I mean? Like the layered stuff. And I was just like, okay, man, this is fucking great. So do you want to speak a little bit on it? And
sure,
as far as the actual songs and that?
Yeah. Going back into that, it was like we had to kind of like call out the elephant in the room, which was the last record, The Serpent. And basically I think we were all in agreement that like, hey, you know, like we put this band together and we built a fan base on being what Still Remains became, like between our EP and the first record. And that's how everybody saw us. You know, we created this identity of ourselves, and we said, like, you know, for our next record, we need to just be true to who we set out to be. And that's what we did. That's exactly what we did. We're going to bring it back. We're going to fucking rip it. And we're going to lean into the heavy aspects, but still Remains, and kind of throw our melodics in there. We're going to really focus on some of the keyboard elements. And I think that we just did it in a great way on that album coming back.
I love metalcore. I love Killswitch. And I would put this up into probably my top 10 metalcore albums of all time. Dude.
Holy shit.
I mean, that's how
That's
great.
Amazing.
That's how great to me it is, dude. Like, you guys did a fantastic job on it.
Thank you so much.
It has everything that metalcore needs, and you guys did it here. You know, so
I mean, before the term metalcore really became what it is now it's a whole genre. I would listen to this album, Ceasing to Breathe, and I would say, well, this is like whatever In Flames is. This is like melodic death metal, right?
Yeah.
That's how heavy it is to me. I'm like, it's not brutal death metal. It's not like the Cannibal Corpse, but because you got such a mean vocal and because you guys got such heavy riffs, I'm like, well, this is pretty much death metal. I mean, to the average Joe who doesn't listen to death metal, once you start screaming like that, that's death metal.
Yeah.
So you're immediately in the death metal ballpark, in my
then
opinion.
it goes on the other spectrum, because if you're not a musician and you really don't know what you're talking about as far as genre goes, like, people will hear some of the singing and go, "Oh, you guys are like an emo band,
right?
You're an emo core band."
Yeah.
Like, what the what the fuck are you talking about?
Not at all.
But no, like,
and that's what. And terminologies are hard. I always say on the show, we put subgenres on shit just so we know where to find it later.
Oh, for sure.
Or because metalcore is a weird one too, because metalcores converge.
Yeah.
But metalcores also Still Remains and Killswitch.
Absolutely.
Converge don't have these big old soaring choruses and all that.
Right.
Metalcores, God forbid, they don't have those kind of choruses, but metalcores also on Earth that fucking shreds all over the place. So it's like such a weird kind of.
It is.
It's hard because when somebody says metalcore, I just automatically think After At the Gates, and I think Killswitch Engage. Like, that's the first thing that.
Yeah.
But also Still Remains. To me, that's metalcore. But even Zao, you could say that's metalcore because it's hardcore mixed with metal,
to
right?
me, they were like some of the first ones to do, to really kind of like get that sound dialed in, really, you know. But back before we were really calling it that, in like, 2002, 2003, and we were kind of, taking that influence from the early In Flames and Soilwork stuff, people would be like, well, what do you, what kind of music is this? And we would just say, well, we're a metal band, or we would say we're like the new wave of like American heavy metal.
Sure.
Okay.
That was kind of a, because I mean, hell, it was like this massive wave of European metal and whatever. We were taking so much influence from that. We were so inspired by that stuff that we were just like, it's like a new wave of American heavy metal. Nobody's doing the keyboard thing.
Yeah, that was a thing.
And the melodic thing with the screaming and the breakdowns, and it just kind of all worked. I didn't know what else to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys don't do like obnoxiously slow drop beat breakdowns.
Not typically.
They're like these thrash breakdowns where you go half time on the drums or something, but that right hand might have a trigger like.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, these are some fucking sick thrash breakdowns, but I don't think like the deathcore knuckle dragging breakdowns where these guys got to break it down 10 times in a row. And I'm like, please stop.
Yeah,
Please stop abusing me. I'm like, you guys started with the breakdown. Now I realize that wasn't the breakdown. That was the main riff. And now we're into the cacophony. It's not even a riff. It's just chung.
Yeah.
Chung, chung.
With just some like extremely fast double kick, and then the snare might hit like every like 4 bars or something like that.
Some crazy vocal Olympic pterodactyl noise and
like,
all those
the
shit.
guitars aren't even like guitars. They're just noisy.
Yeah.
Like weird like buckets and bells and whistles.
It's dropped all the way to fucking
it's weird.
Whatever's after F and G and like after A and B and C again and double drop and whatever, but
man,
well,
it's a great album.
Yeah,
just one last time, I just gotta say, man, I know it was 12 years ago. It's hard to believe, but I mean, it still holds. For example, I just listened to the new Halo Effect, which is Jesper Stromlin from In Flames, and I'm like, Jesus, this has been out since January. How come I didn't know about it? And then a day or two later, I'm listening to your album from 12 years ago, and I'm like, fucking stands. Like, it is today's fucking hot shit to me.
Yeah.
Like, I would put these two albums next to each other, and I wouldn't know one's 12 years old and one's 6 months old.
Yeah.
So that goes to show like the quality of musicianship and songwriting that you guys have built in to still remains. Because an album 12 years ago, I'd put it on my 2025 albums of the year. It's going in the top 10 because that halo effect for me is going in my top 10 until something knocks it out. But I'm like, man, this is like, I just listened to that album the other day and I'm listening to your album 12 years ago. Fucking same. Same. I mean, obviously Halo Effect, pretty big band. You got Jesper Stromlin from In Flames, so they're already over there in Europe, so they're going to be pretty popular.
We toured with Nicholas. I think Englund. Is it Englund? He was in Flames. He's in the Halo Effect. He's other guitar.
Well, all of them were in Flames. I think that's the whole band.
Yeah. Our guys really like that record too. Like AJ and Jordan and Zach are really into the Halo Effect.
Oh yeah. That makes sense.
They love that.
Yeah,
stuff.
that makes sense.
The new album is so goddamn good. But yeah, your guys' album, Ceasing to Breathe, stands today. And if you drag out any songs from that, shout it out. Let them know if they're listening. If you haven't heard our album because it was a DIY independent campaign, like, here it is, so you know where to find it. This one's not off of Love and Lunacy, but our more recent album. And I think fans that haven't heard it, man, run out and listen to this thing because it is smoking. All praise, man. Just absolutely loved it front to back.
Thank you very much.
So there's like a lot more I could talk to you about. I don't want to keep you all day. I know you got stuff to do.
He's a prisoner.
We've already been.
We can do another one at some point if you'd like to.
Yeah, no, that would be great, dude. Because there's a lot more stuff I'd like to dive into. There's two things I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about, at least real quickly, because I do want to wrap this up. I don't like to go over two. First things first, and then after that, you guys did a couple singles in 2023. Was that what happened, right? I don't. So
no, we didn't do anything else.
Because what's weird is when I look at stuff on Amazon Music, I don't know if it dates it from the time that it was uploaded, but because I listen to everything on Amazon Music, the single, The Reading Lips.
Oh, that was before.
Okay, so when you were talking about that, that's what I picked up from it. But for some reason, it's dated after. And then with my research, The Reading Lips was also dated on this as 2023. So maybe the information came from the Amazon thing.
So the deal was with those is that we did Ceasing to Breathe, but then it was a whole indie thing. But Warner Music picked it up in Japan.
Oh, okay.
And they needed a couple special tracks to put on the record because that's just what you do. Like overseas you got to throw some B-sides on it.
Yep.
So we had those two songs from before Ceasing to Breathe that we just kind of gave away for free. And we tacked those on for Japan. And we pulled them offline in America and said, here you go. We don't have any other songs. This is all we can really do. And so now they're, after this 10-year, we had this like 10-year agreement or something like that, I feel like, with Japan. Well, now that 10 years is done, we can basically like say, hey, America, you can have these songs again.
That makes sense.
So that's probably why that date is on both those.
Okay, that makes sense because I was kind of confused. And then was the licensing a bitch to do was it Head Like a Hole?
No, it wasn't. Kerrang reached out to us on that.
Okay.
That was for a Kerrang magazine compilation. Remember when Killswitch did the Holy Diver?
Oh, yeah.
It was for that.
Oh, okay.
So it was like the whole thing. Like,
sweet.
Hey, we know Kirsten at Roadrunner reached out and was like, hey, we know you love Nine Inch Nails. Would you guys want to do a Nine Inch Nails cover for this? And I was like, holy shit, yeah, man. I wonder what song we would do. And it just kind of came down to Head Like a Hole, and we did it.
Cool.
Kind of surprised you guys didn't reach for something from Broken, but that is one of the more popular songs.
Yeah.
And probably the only guitar-driven track on that album, if memory serves.
Broken would have been so cool to do.
Yeah, anything off of Broken would have blew my mind. Like, fuck yeah, James.
and like I was saying, I would be remiss if we didn't talk at least a little bit about Glassfield. Honestly, if you want, dude, we could have you back and maybe some of the guys from Glassfield and just have a whole Glassfield episode if you want. But I would just since I got you here, 5 more minutes and then we'll let you go, bro.
Okay.
I just want to talk a little bit about Glassfield because you just did come out with a record called Leave a Light On. Was it 2024 it came out, or was it this year?
It was March of 2024.
Okay. So it's fairly new. Glassfield, now this is completely, obviously different than Still Remains, but I checked it out. I think your vocals are on full display on this, dude. Like,
thanks.
Everything that you can do, like, I was so impressed by all the vocals. Because most all the vocals are you. Do you handle most all the vocals on this?
Yeah, except our guitar player, Josh, lead sings on the last song.
Okay. Well, for the most of the album, because you had so much variety on here, I thought it was really cool. I thought this album would be something Nick would really be into because it's not even, I don't want to say it's not in the metal category because you do some metal vocals, but to me, that's almost the most metal thing about it is the vocal. I remember when we talked to you at Hoist Fest and you were kind of trying to explain the band, like you were just kind of like, it's kind of like rock, a little bit aggressive and like
it's just moody all the way around.
Yeah, you can't really put you couldn't put a finger on it, but it does. The first song's like 6 minutes long and it just kind of goes on and there's some droney and there's some different parts. That's why I thought you would like it because it is all mood. It's just I
love that.
It's just
it's creepy and melodic.
Yeah, it is,
but weird. It's abrasive. Yep. Like it's just weird.
It is different. It's different than anything. I couldn't put a finger on it, but if I had to like compare it to something, it's like a obscure, almost kind of like a grunge alternative metal type thing, like, or rock, I should say. Even. Yeah, it's hard to put a finger on, but it's pretty cool. So you just want to say a little bit about Glassfield before we wrap this up, just so we can at least talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, if anything, I would attribute a lot of that to like the weird tones and everything to like Soundgarden.
Okay,
perfect. We're big Soundgarden fans. We love the Pumpkins. We love. We do a Depeche Mode cover. So it's. Yeah, it's a different place. It comes from a different place musically, I think, than Still Remains does for sure. But Ryan Herrig, he's been the primary writer for Glassfield for years and years. I just came into it a couple of years ago.
Yep.
But Ryan and I went to high school together. We've known each other for years.
Oh wow.
And I've known Matt and Britt for years, and yeah, dude, I don't know. Glassfield is just like this whole other thing, and it's a space that I love working in because it really massages those other creative things that I don't get to do in the other projects.
Yeah.
So I can kind of just like let go a bit more. It's not so intense. I can really kind of get in my head and try to connect with the melodics and the noise and the just whatever, kind of lose myself more in the music than Glassfield. And I always strive to do that. Just like to get to a point where I can just close my eyes and just let it all kind of come out without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Vibe.
It's a very vibe thing for me. And that's really what Glassfield is to me.
Cool.
To me, it's more of a vibe.
Any shows on the books for Glassfield that you want to plug?
Right now, no. We are going to start working on a new record. We've got a ton of ideas in the keg, so it's really just kind of sorting through them and building them. I'm going to be busy, getting this Still Remains stuff together, the tour and the show coming up. We're doing Furnace Fest, so that's kind of where my focus is right now. But I've kind of encouraged the Glassfield, guys and gals to, hey, keep it going. I really want to check in here and do what I can and give my 2 cents with the new stuff. So I just want to keep that boat really rolling.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, I'll just let you know that we could probably talk to you for another 3 hours. You're a cool ass dude, TJ. We appreciate your time, man, here. And, hopefully we can shed a little light on the show coming up. Hopefully it's a banger on August 16th, right?
Yep.
So make sure you go to the Pyramid Scheme, get some tickets for that. Some great bands on the bill. Still Remains, celebrating the 20th year of Love and Lunacy. And like I said, man, we appreciate your time. Is there anything else that we left out or anything else you want to say before we wrap it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I got one last question. I'm just reading the wiki here.
Yeah,
so
sure.
you can verify this for us here and now. But it does say future LP fall 2025 with respect to Still Remains, as announced by the Black Sheep podcast. True or false? Any comment on that?
We don't have a release date.
Okay.
I can tell you that it's not going to be an LP. It'll be an EP.
Okay.
And we don't have a solid release date, but we'd like to get it out before the end of the year.
Okay. Cool. It does say EP on here. So
it does say EP. Okay.
I read feature LP. It does say that, but it's filed on your wiki as under the EP category.
Got it.
So
got it.
All right. Well, thank you for clearing that up.
Absolutely.
Thanks, TJ.
Hell yeah, brother, man.
Y'all
keep it metal. Thank you so much. Peace. Thank you so much for checking out the episode. Be sure to hit that like button and give us a share.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed our podcast today, please give it a rating on your streaming service to help us gain some exposure.
And if you really enjoyed the show, please give us a follow or hit that subscribe button and come hang out with us every week. And remember, keep it metal.